Hey, you!
Me?
You look a lot like a puppet I saw once. Name was Pistachio.
That's Pinocchio.
Because the world needs all the magic, music, and adventure it can get. Filmation proudly presents Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night.
Hey everyone, Captain Sean here with a very special movie review for you all. It's a special review for a sequel to Disney's Pinocchio, but it's a sequel that actually wasn't made by Disney. It was actually made by the company Filmation. Now you might be wondering, who is Filmation? Well, you see, from the 1960s through the 1980s, cartoons were not made with the highest quality, and no better example of this was Filmation, where their emphasis placed on quantity over quality, which resulted in cartoons that have not aged well with time. However, near the end of the company's run, they made an attempt to create a higher in quality animated production, Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night. While not officially being a Disney sequel, the movie outside of character designs definitely feels like it. The way this particular version of Pinocchio acts and where the story begins, it feels like a very thinly veiled continuation of the Disney movie. Now, despite the story of Pinocchio being in public domain by this time, Disney actually sued Filmation for copyright infringements and lost. But here's the thing, I actually watched this movie when I was in preschool, and at that age, I actually thought, oh, this is Pinocchio too. Oh, they look different, but everybody looks a little different as they get older. But although I do seem to have a memory of having a bad experience watching this movie in preschool, I don't know why though. But that being said, let's just be upfront and honest. A lot of what's in this movie isn't as good as the Disney version. The animation movements and use of colors aren't as good, and the music is nothing close to being memorable. But that being said, they did get some good choices for voice actors in this movie, such as Frank Welker, Ed Asner, Don Knotts, and even James Earl Jones. Plus, despite the animation being very different than the Disney movie, it does take some interesting artistic directions at times, and it does actually tackle some deep philosophical themes that are even deeper than the Disney tale. But let's just get on to the main part of this review. This is my special movie review for Filmation's Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night. The movie picks up a year after the original story ended, with Pinocchio now being exactly 1 year old. He's visited by the Blue Fairy, and while there, aside from doing the most boring Disney-sounding rip-off song ever, she explains to Pinocchio about how he's not just special because he's a puppet that got turned into a real boy, but rather is special because he is a being that had no free will, but now has it, and how he shouldn't take that for granted, because if he does, he might become a puppet again. And honestly, this is a pretty smart early plot point. In the original story, the puppet Pinocchio is brought to life, and that just happens. But in this story, we're already exploring the themes of giving life and free will to a being that originally had none, and how certain types of bad choices can cause you to lose it. It's kind of a deep allegory all in all, so this movie is already off to a good start. But this still doesn't explain why I seem to have some memory of having a bad experience watching this as a kid. But moving on. Now, Pinocchio, on behalf of his father, is sent to deliver a jewel box he made to the mayor. While there, Pinocchio gets a new talking bug friend named G. Willikers, who is the most thinly veiled stand-in for Jiminy Cricket. And how do I know he's a thinly veiled stand-in for Pinocchio's conscience from the Disney movie? Because G. Willikers is never told at any point to be Pinocchio's conscience, but that's immediately what he starts to act like when he shows up. While delivering the jewel box, Pinocchio runs into two con men, a raccoon and a monkey, who are obviously stand-ins for the fox and the cat from the Disney movie. But to be fair, the lead con man, voiced by Ed Asner, does have a certain level of unique charm and likability to him.
I can see you're a shrewd businessman. Igor, it will have to be the Pharaoh's ruby.
The con men persuade Pinocchio to sell his jewel box to them for a fake ruby. Pinocchio obviously gets in trouble with his father for this. Feeling bad and thinking he's not good enough to live where he is, Pinocchio runs away to the carnival. When he gets there, he sees a female puppet performing and gets the hots for her, which is kind of weird. Although Pinocchio was once a puppet, so maybe that makes this illegal and... Okay, this is just getting too weird. Now, is this the reason why I seem to remember having a bad experience watching this movie when I was young? Oh well, let's just move on. When the puppet show is over, Pinocchio meets the carnival puppeteer and owner, Puppetino. Upon meeting Pinocchio, Puppetino invites Pinocchio to come with him alone backstage. Pinocchio says no at first, but upon seeing that following Puppetino backstage will get him more time with a lovely girl puppet Twinkle, Pinocchio decides to go against what his better free will tells him to do and follows Puppetino into the dark backstage area. But then it's revealed Puppetino actually has some sort of dark evil powers, because as soon as Pinocchio goes against what his better free will tells him, his hands start to turn back into wood, and then...
You'll stop when I want you to, just like the rest of my puppets.
Repressed preschool memories returning. Scared childhood feelings rising. Creepy level going way through the roof. I can't keep watching this movie! I'm out of here! Ah! Hey, you, get back here! Who the heck are you? I'm the Internet Reviewing Police. You have to keep watching this movie. Why do I have to keep watching this movie? Because the Internet rules say that once you start reviewing a cartoon movie, you can't stop reviewing it. But I don't want to continue reviewing this movie! It's scary! It's so scary! I don't care. I'm the Internet Police, and you have to keep watching it. No! Just let go of me! No! No! I don't want to keep reviewing it! You have to. That's the rules. No! No! So, this truly is one of the scariest things ever done in a kid's animated movie, at least one of the most unique. When Pinocchio sees his friend turn into a donkey in the Disney movie, that's more of an allegory for experiencing consequences to bad choices. But this is like an allegory for getting possessed by a demon. The way Pinocchio screams for everything to stop, but it keeps getting worse, adds to the terror, but it's the vague things that are even creepier. When you see Puppetino turn Pinocchio into a puppet with ease, you start to question, has he done this before? Are some of his other puppets people that were turned into what they are now? Did all of his puppets start out as children and go through an identical experience to this? When you realize all of this, you suddenly see this is a room full of individuals that have had their souls robbed from them. And to have Pinocchio's final thing he's trying to say stop mid-sentence and just be finished off by the sound of wood lips moving is beyond creepy. And because Pinocchio doesn't follow what his better free will told him to do, he's now literally lost all of his free will completely. Also, the music here sounds like a very synthesized 80s music, but it actually works here. The very unnatural music really does make the scene feel like it's very otherworldly. This truly is one of the scariest things ever done in a children's animated project, and it is definitely the stuff of nightmares. It's the one scene in this movie you have to really admire, or be completely terrified by. But the amount of uniquely creative work in this scene makes a lot of what comes after seem very boring in comparison. In the next scene, we see G. Willikers befriending some talking bee that acts like he's in the Royal Air Force. Then we see the Blue Fairy show up and gives Pinocchio his free will back. But then we see Pinocchio actually try to be responsible and try to get the jewel box back from the con men all on his own. Not the best plan, but it is nice to see Pinocchio show some level of responsibility in this tale. However, the con men have learned that Puppetino is mad he lost Pinocchio and is willing to pay a fortune for anyone who brings him back. And all of this happens off-screen. Seriously, it's only told via exposition from the con men when they're talking to themselves later. That's not the best way to tell a story. But anyway, the con men act like Puppetino conned them and get Pinocchio to go on a journey with them to find him and get the jewel box back. Then the movie literally stops for 8 minutes to feature the bugs having their own separate adventure. And it's really just standard stuff. That being standard stuff for a preschool show. But then it moves back to Pinocchio, who saves the con men from being hurt during a boat accident. And this actually causes the con men to have a change of heart. But It's too late because their boat is literally swallowed by a bigger boat that is actually kind of a dark magic vehicle controlled by the evil Emperor of the Night. While inside the boat, Pinocchio goes against what his better instincts say and leaves his mission to check out a weird party place he sees. A kind of pleasure island type building with other kids who live without any consequence or responsibility. Only here there are drinks that give you really weird hallucinations, such as a pretty trippy dance number Pinocchio gets into. But then the hallucination ends when Puppetino shows up along with his master and...
Who are you?
The Emperor of the Night. You are in my domain now.
Holy, what the? That design, that look, I mean, that is not the Emperor of the Night. That is the devil. Pinocchio has met the devil. This is way too creepy for me. I'm out of here. I'm gone. What the? You again? Yep, it's me, the Internet Police. You can't stop reviewing this movie. But I don't want to review it anymore. This movie is creepy. I don't care. Get back in there. What the? So, Pinocchio meets this creature who's pretty much the devil. The analogy is even more apparent when the Emperor of the Night reveals that everyone in his land is a puppet. So basically, this is the land of people who have no free will and have had their souls removed. This is pretty much hell in a kid's movie. What am I watching?
Give up your freedom to me forever.
And if you can't tell, that's James Earl Jones doing the voice of the Emperor. And while you could argue his performance isn't as menacing as his Darth Vader performance, it really is interesting to hear him play a villain that's not subdued at all and is just pure evil in its rawest form. Now it's revealed the Emperor is so interested in Pinocchio because Pinocchio is the only former puppet in the world that obtained free will. And with a bit of a stretch, you could even speculate maybe this means that from the beginning, Pinocchio was the reincarnation of someone whose soul originally belonged to this underworld, but was freed when his soul was put into an animated puppet so long ago by the Blue Fairy. It's kind of like an allegory for someone who has been atoned for their sins, but Satan is trying to pull them back down. It's pretty deep and dark stuff. The allegory gets deeper when it's revealed that if the Emperor got Pinocchio to become a puppet again, he would grow stronger, since evil grows in power when people willingly choose to do nothing. Again, this is really deep stuff. But even when Pinocchio gives himself to save his friends, the power of goodness and light inside Pinocchio's heart allows him to destroy the Emperor. And yeah, in any other kid's movie, this would sound really cliche and stupid. But here, it works. The idea here is the Emperor grows in power from people who give up their free will. So when an individual so strong in will chooses to oppose him and only be good, it weakens him. So in the end, Puppetino winds up getting turned into a puppet, the Emperor is defeated, Pinocchio is a completely normal human again, as is that girl puppet he liked, the con men have learned the error of their ways, and the bugs are happy too. And that is Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night. And despite some scenes really creeping me out, it's actually a movie I recommend anybody check out. Now, the movie is not perfect. The songs are forgettable, and some scenes, mostly the stuff with just the bugs, is really boring and predictable. Plus, the animation is kind of weird in this movie. In some parts, the animation really flows well, like it's a really well-drawn Disney movie. But then in other parts, the characters get really stiff. It's like they only had the budget to animate 2/3 of a good movie and barely tried on the rest. But the good stuff here is really good. The way the animators did the animation for the creepy scenes is some of the creepiest stuff ever done in a children's movie ever. And when the movie gets deep, it gets really deep. It's by far one of the best animated projects the Filmation company ever did. Sadly though, the movie did really poorly when it came out back in 1987. It didn't even make half of its budget. And this wound up becoming the last standalone project Filmation ever did because the company shut down shortly after. But if this had to be the company's grand finale, they at least went out with a huge bang. Unfortunately though, because most of Filmation's standalone works got bought up and spread across different companies, this movie has never been put on DVD, or even gotten a television airing or other media release since 1991 in America. So don't feel bad about watching this via fan uploads on YouTube. But with all this being said, this movie may feel like a spiritual sequel to a Disney movie, but it doesn't really feel like a Disney movie. It really is just a unique piece of animation history that anyone out there should check out.